Today we are privileged to have yet another guest speaker. Of all the guest speakers who came last semester, he's the only one I've repeated for this semester, and there's a reason. It is because, in my estimation, I felt he connected more with the class than all the other guest speakers. I also feel that the class benefited more from his presentation, especially for those of you who are doing biomedical engineering, IT, and those of you who have business minds who wants to do some businesses. I feel that this is probably the best person to talk to you on these things. That's why I've repeated the same guest lecturer this semester. And I'm sure that by the end of the class, every single one of you, including those who are using their laptops, who are sleeping through the class, all of you, you would learn something, at least one thing. And today's second assignment, or our second assignment for the semester, will come from today's lecture. So it will be in your own interest to listen. Then I will do the third one later, because there will be 3 assignments. And then a group presentation. I'll put you guys in groups so that you do a presentation. But just so you know, our guest lecturer for today, just like me, went to St. Francis Xavier Minor Seminary. Oh, clap. So beyond the fact that he's an entrepreneur, he also lectures at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, the engineering department, biomedical engineering department. Our guest lecturer for today, if you have been reading the news or when COVID struck, you would have probably heard that someone, or is it invented? I don't know the right word. But someone did the test kits, COVID-19 test kits here in Ghana. We didn't have to go to the UK or America to get them. That's the guest lecturer we have for today. Oh yes, you can clap to that. He is the founder and CEO of Incas Diagnostics, the company that does all these works. So I don't want to take so much time. Let's put our hands together and welcome Dr. Laud Basing.
How is everybody? It's always nice to be here. I've been here a number of times, and it's always very nice to see young people. One of the things I always say is that if I had the information that you have access to when I was in the university, I'm sure by now I wouldn't be here. But so take all the lessons you get from these guest lectures that come, and then make use of it. So my name is Laud Basing, as he said. I wear different shoes at different times. So I am a lecturer in KNUST, as he said, but I lecture out of the medical school, not the biomedical engineering department. I teach microbiology, so different small organisms. That's what I teach. Disease. My main area of specialty is sexually transmitted infections. So STIs. That's where my area of specialty is. But he's right to say that I also teach other departments, including the biomedical engineering department. So I remember when I was in second year, I went to KNUST, and in my second year, I remember my roommates told me about this speaker who was going to tell us how to make $1 million. Okay, so I think the talk was how to make your first $1 million. So my roommates wanted us to go, and the question I asked my roommate was, that guy who is coming to talk about $1 million, Does he have $1 million? If he doesn't have $1 million, I'm not going. So usually when I go to talk to people about different topics, I like to start with my story. Okay, because if I'm going to tell you about charting unfamiliar paths, right, I need to tell you about how I have been able to do that, the problems that I had, and then the success stories as well. And so that is what this whole lecture is going to be. So before I start, I want to say one other thing. So I have taught in universities in the US for a while. But before I started teaching, I was first a student. And one of the things that shocked me was a particular class that taught us how to brag. You see, coming from a place like Ghana where you are supposed to, in fact, there's even a saying, those who understand Twi, there's a saying that says, "Ahwenepa nkasa," right? Meaning that, let your deeds speak for you. You do not have to speak yourself. And then going there, and then you are taught how to project yourself, how to chip things about yourself in every single conversation, how to come to the center so that you become the center of attention. It was a huge culture shock for me. But one of the things I discovered, and I'm going to tell you as you go along, is the fact that it is one of the things that has led to a lot of the opportunities that have come my way. People knowing what I do and giving me the opportunity to do more. Unfortunately, it's still a problem in Ghana where you ask people to introduce themselves and they are very modest. Okay, they have a lot of things to say about themselves, but they are very modest because they don't want to sound too known, or they don't want to come off as bragging. Okay, and people miss a lot of opportunities that way, because if I don't know about you and there are opportunities, I will not be able to give you those opportunities. Okay, so that is one of the things I want you to pay particular attention to. Now, I've always been very confused about what I wanted to do with my life. Okay, as of now, I'm still even confused about what I want to do with my life. Okay, I didn't know whether to go into academia, as in to pursue a master's degree, PhD, climb that ladder. I didn't know whether I wanted to go into business, because, again, I'll tell you the story about how I started business from the university. Okay, I had always enjoyed selling. Okay, convincing people to be able to buy something from me always gives me joy. The joy is in telling the person saying, yes, I'll buy it, much more than getting the money for the buy. It's like you've done something huge, being able to convince somebody to buy something. So I've always enjoyed that. Okay. And of course, for a long while, I was working for the government. I was at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. So, at the beginning, it was enjoyable. Getting to the end, I didn't like it, but at the beginning, it was enjoyable. So I always didn't know which way I wanted to go, whether I wanted to work for somebody else, government or any other person. I wanted to go into academia where I'll teach, I'll do research and all of that, or I wanted to go into business. And I battled with this decision for a very long time, even after school. And then one day I decided that why not combine all of the three and do it at the same time? If you get to a point where you crash, then you crash. And it is that decision to combine all the three that has led to a lot of the things that I have been able to do. So let me start from when I was in second year in the university, right? When I was going to the university at the time, I don't know whether it still pertains, but you needed SNIT loans. SNIT had to give you a loan, and then when you finish school and start working, you start paying off. Okay, so almost everybody in the university had a SNIT loan, and that SNIT loan would take care of you in school, and sometimes it will help you pay your fees. But when I was going to school, my parents told me I didn't need a SNIT loan because they were going to take care of me. And then second year, disaster struck. My dad had kidney problems, which meant that there was no way I was going to be able to, first of all, afford my fees, not to talk about food, right? And then upkeep. And now that my dad was sick, we needed to send money, dialysis, a lot of things. He was at 37 at the time. And so I had to either quit school, and then maybe hope for the better, that things will be better, and then I'll go back. We discussed that. We also discussed the fact that I could actually defer, not just quit, just defer for a while. Or what? So I thought about another option. Why don't I still be in school, go to campus, sign an undertaking? There was that opportunity where you could sign an undertaking that says, I'll pay my fees maybe by this time and this time and this time. And then maybe work while I was on campus and see. So, that was the option I went for. I went to, there was a bar around, campus. I was serving drinks in the bar. I did that for a few months. I thought people would give me tips, because whenever you go to the bar, they're always giving people tips. But I realized that they were giving the girls tips and they're not minding me. The girls that were serving the drinks with me, they were giving them tips and they're not minding me. So after a while, I decided that, okay, I think I needed to do something more than just working for somebody else to pay me. And so, I thought about what problem I could solve, and in solving a problem, maybe that would help me. And so I started with photocopies. Okay. I knew that, we had past questions, we had, handouts and all of those things that we needed photocopies made. Okay. And, my time, it wasn't like now that they give you the slides. After you finish lecture, you have to give the students the slide. That time the lecturer would basically, make the handout and sell to students. Okay. And there were some lectures made it compulsory, some lectures did not make it compulsory. So those lectures that did not make it compulsory, you can take the handout from somebody who's bought the handout and then make copies yourself. Okay, so I did three things. I took these handouts, and for some of them I went to look for past questions and all of that, and I made it into a booklet. And then I went to see the photocopy guy, and I was like, okay, so I'm coming to make about 100 copies of this. My class were like 400 and something. Anyway. So, I'm going to make lots of copies of this, right? So give me a discount so that I'll make all of them with you. So the guy says, okay, I'll give you 10% discount. Went back and forth. He ended up giving me 20% discount. So I made all of these copies. Then I went to see my friends and I'm like, okay, so I am selling this. Is all the copies you get plus past questions and everything. Okay, so if a photocopy was, say, 10 cedis, I'm taking 12 cedis for it, because I've gone to look for past questions and I've done all the work for you. So 12 cedis. Mind you, the photocopy guy gave me 20% discount. So I made quite a bit of profit. After a while, I had made enough money. I bought a photocopier machine myself. And then people were coming to my room to make photocopy. That time we used to burn movies on CDs. I sound very old, eh? Yes. Sometimes when I talk about it, like it looks like that's far away. It's not too far. It's just recent anyway. So used to burn movies on CDs. So I'll do that in my room. If you wanted any song, any movie, anything, just come, we'll burn it for you and all of that. And I was making money. So it got to a point I wasn't even asking, I wasn't calling home to ask for money or anything, because I was self-sufficient. I realized that, okay, with the business that I was into, I was able to, I was able to pay my fees. I was able to get enough. I was able to buy photocopy machines. I bought 2, and then I still had enough money, like, for myself. Because I realized that business would be a nice thing to do. And then I finished school. It was compulsory. Before I could get my license, I had to work. So I went to Confanochi Teaching Hospital. I worked for a while and all of that. And then, this was 2006, 2007, thereabout. And then at that time, there was an embargo on employment. Okay. So I'll tell you, once you finish school, the government will post you. But we're in an IMF program, 2006. We are getting into an IMF program now. Anyway, so there was an embargo on employment. That means that you could not be employed. So I had to find a way to make money. So one of the things I did was that I had what I call the hospital in a bag. So I've been carrying backpacks since that time, and I've become used to carrying backpack. And in my backpack, I have everything. Okay, I have test kits, I have syringes, I have everything that time I had thermometers, everything was in my bag. Okay, so, and then I would go, there were a number of, aged, like there were people that had family outside Ghana, but the mother or the father was very old, and carrying the person to the hospital every 2 weeks for checkups and all of these things, it was exhausting. Okay. So once I knew somebody like that, I'll go and be like, don't worry, all the transports I would come myself, come and make sure, take your sample, do all the checkups, the tests and all of that. Okay. Just pay me at the end of every month. Initially, when I told a friend of mine that I wanted to do that, he was like, oh, Ghana, people will not be interested. I was really surprised. It got to a point, like Monday to Friday, every single day, I had about 2 or 3 people I would go and see. Okay. And I was not working, but I was very okay. In fact, when I was even posted, I didn't like it because then it meant that I was going to cut down on the money I was making. So I realized that business was something that I was really, really interested in. But I also knew that I liked teaching. If you leave me like this, I can talk for like hours, right? And I also know that I liked research. And so while business was good, I was making money out of business, I still felt that I wanted to do something academic. Okay. So I decided to, once I had worked for about 3 years, I decided to enroll into a master's degree program in microbiology at the time. And so I started the program, but it wasn't very interesting. I wasn't enjoying it that much. Okay. So once I finished, I decided that, okay, no more academics for me at the time. I said, no more academics for me. I wanted to do something more interesting. So I was working at the hospital, and then I started, and this is very important, I started volunteering my services to a district called the Upper West Achim district. It's in the eastern region. It's about 45 minutes drive from Accra. At the time, it was a new district. It had just been created, and they didn't have a hospital. They had a health center. They didn't have a lot of health staff. So what I would do is that once a week I would come over there, would see patients, we would help with training staff on identifying different diseases and all of that. I did this for about 3 years. Okay. Around the same time as well, I decided that I wanted to set up a medical lab. Okay, because I realized that there were a lot of people that were doing laboratory tests, but these were very expensive. So you ask the person to go and do a test, the person will go to will go home and not come and not do the test. And then until it's too late, the person comes and you're like, why didn't you do the test? The person says, oh, it was too expensive. So I decided to set up a lab, to offer in my own terms, affordable, medical laboratory services to the people in Kumasi. Unfortunately, I was very naive. Because when you go onto the internet and you look at those, like the reagents that we use, they were very cheap. Okay. But then the tests were very expensive. And I didn't understand why. So I thought that, we could just buy the things and then, do the test at a very cheap cost. So why don't I just do that? Unfortunately, that did not work because when I started, I realized that we import everything. And once you import the raw materials, it goes through different levels. So the person importing it is not the same person who is going to do the test. So that person sells it to a wholesaler. The wholesaler will sell it to a distributor. The distributor will sell it to medical suppliers, like about 4 or 5 of them, before it gets to the lab. And everyone would add a bit of markup. Okay, everybody will add a bit of markup. And then at the end of the day, everything is put on the patient. So a reagent that should give you a test that costs like maybe 5 cedis. The test is being run for 100 cedis. Okay. So that was what I noticed. And now let me use pregnancy tests as an example. Okay. One of the tests that I make pregnancy tests, right? And one of the tests that I make, it costs about less than 10 pesos to make. How much is pregnancy test sold? How much is pregnancy test sold? You know. Okay. Hello. So, I mean, I'm sure the minimum is around 3 cities, 5 cities, right? 3 cities. So, something that costs around 10 pesos to make is being sold at 3 cities. And it's not their fault because it goes through a lot of hands before it gets to the final user, right? And so I decided that, okay, when I needed to learn how to make these kits myself so that we do not have to import. And that was also another thing. So I spoke to a lot of people. I did a lot of calls, did a lot of search, and I realized that the whole of Africa at the time, there was nobody that was developing or manufacturing test kits. There was nobody. Like, if you wanted to learn how to make test kits, you either go to China, India, Europe, or the US. The whole of Africa, there was none. Okay. Now, here I was doing business, volunteering for all of this, but I wanted something more. I wanted to be able to learn how to develop these test kits. Unfortunately, it's not taught in school. Okay. There's no school, at least in Africa, that you go and they'll teach you how to make test kits. Okay. Which means that if I wanted to learn, I needed to go outside. I asked around and I got a quotation as to how long it would take me to learn. How much it would take me to learn how to make test kits. Now, I was told that a month, I needed to pay $4,000 a month in San Diego, California, in the US. So I had to buy my own ticket. I had to find my own accommodation. I had to find my own food and everything. And I needed to pay $4,000 a month. Okay. At the time, I was working at the Confanachi Teaching Hospital. I was making some money, but it wasn't that much. Okay. I had done business a bit and I had saved some money. But $4,000 plus the tickets and everything, when I did a calculation plus accommodation, and San Diego is like it's metropolitan, so it's expensive. Okay, I was going to stay in a hostel, but even the hostel, you were paying every day. Right? You were paying the fees every single day. So I liquidated all the investments I made. And that is the thing. I remember there were a lot of people that felt that I was being stupid because, one, I didn't know whether I would even know how I would be able to learn how to make the test kits. 2, I didn't know whether once I learned and I come back, it was going to generate any funds. And I had been saving for years. And here I was liquidating all my funds, like every single money that I had to go and learn how to make test kits. Okay. So anyway, I liquidated everything and it wasn't enough. So I had to take a loan. So I was still working. So I took a loan from one of these. Usually when I mention their names, I've been told that I should stop mentioning their names because otherwise they will sue me. Cause you take a loan for, let's say 10,000 cedis. By the time you finish paying, you'd have paid like 50,000 cedis. Those loan guys, if you don't know about them, you thank God. Okay. But I took a loan from them. I added it to a friend of mine gave me some money and all of that. And I was able to travel for a month. Now, I thought that I was going to use a month to learn how to make the test kits. Okay. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Apparently, I needed 3 years if I wanted to be a master. Right? I needed 3 years. $4,000 was plus my plane ticket, plus everything else. Had taken all my savings. Okay. But after a month of learning, so I took my leave at the hospital, and then I went. So when I went there, after about a month, I knew most of the principles they were using. Okay. I knew, and apart from the principles, usually the class starts maybe around 9 a.m. By 12, you've done with most of the theory, and then you go for lunch. And then you go into the lab where they do the practicals until 3, and after that you've closed. So I befriended one of the guys, Jason, and after 3, when everybody had left, I'll stay in the lab. Jason would work with me, teach me all the things and all those things. By the time, I would usually leave around 7, 8. So I was way ahead of the others. But after the month was over, I knew the basics of, so you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to add this, that I knew. I also knew the principles behind the development, although I had not had a lot of hands-on practicals. Okay. So I told myself I didn't need those 3 years. Okay. I could learn the others on my own. And I came back with lots of books about developing test kits and all of that. Okay. So I was learning a lot of the theory without necessarily the practical. 2016, and around that time too, I started developing a test called the VAG kit. At that time, I hadn't called it the VAG kit yet, but I was developing a test for vaginal infections. It was so before I continue, let me tell you something. So I used to teach a subject called human sexuality, right? Wait, I'm coming. And it's a class about 3,000 people. And this was in the US. And as the name suggests, you talk a lot about different aspects, like basically it's about the physiology of sex. You find people excited and laughing, and usually once in a while you see people laugh once in a while. They would write, they are serious, they will ask questions, they will smile, but you don't get people so excited. Then I come back to Ghana and you are teaching and you mention sex and everybody's so excited, like, why? Why are you people so excited when you mention things like that? Oh, no. They are just English words. Forget about them. Okay. Anyway, so I wanted to develop a test. I wanted to develop a test for vaginal infections. And the reason was that while I was at Confederation, there was a woman who came to the hospital one time, and very well dressed woman, and she was speaking on the phone, like you could see that she was a big woman. And then she was asked, she was supposed to take a test called the high vaginal swab. So for high vaginal swab, you lie down, to put something inside you and take a swab, right? And when we told her what the test was about, her face fell, like her whole mood changed. And for more than 2 hours, this lady said that she couldn't just muster the courage to come for us to take the sample. And it was a guy who was going to take the sample. You get the point. And for about 2 hours, she was just basically moving up and down, and then she come and sit down. Then finally she agreed, and we took the sample. But then it got me thinking about developing a test that women could do in their house. You don't need to come to the hospital, because you see, when a lady feels like she has a vaginal infection, okay, usually she'll go to the hospital. It's itching, or she has a discharge or something. She goes to the hospital. They will take a swab sample. It will take about 3 days for the results to be ready. She has to come for the results and then go see the doctor with it and all of that. First of all, it's invasive. Somebody is putting something inside you, something you don't want. Secondly, You see the way the guys are excited? Secondly, it's a bit embarrassing, right? Having to stream in front of somebody you don't know. Okay. And if you live, especially if you live in a community where you actually know the person and you have to go and stream in front of that person. Maybe the person has been calling you crying, you've not been minding the person, and now you have to stream in front of the person. You see how embarrassing it is. And then the third thing was that is that it takes a long time. It takes 3 days for you to get your results. Before the person comes to the hospital, the person is uncomfortable. It's itching. The person cannot sleep. And the person has to wait 3 days before they take a drug. So I felt I needed to do something about it. So while I was I conceived the idea before I went to learn how to make the test kits. And so, while I was learning, the 1 month I was learning, I spoke to Jason, and Jason was like, yeah, it can be done. But so we went through it. I asked the director about the possibility. He gave me a few ideas, got a few ideas from other people, and I started to put it together. So from 2014 to 2016, I worked on this project. And the good thing is that anytime I was on leave, I would get some money, go to the US. This time I wasn't paying to take part in the course, but I'll go to the US, and ostensibly to go and say hi to the guys at the lab I learned how to make test kits. I just go and say hi and hang on and talk to people and show them my kits and then get ideas and all of that. So I did that for a while. Somewhere in 2016, I had a prototype. 2016, I had a prototype. And then because I was volunteering, remember I was volunteering for this district, right? So the US Embassy, who has heard about the Mandela Washington Fellowship? Nobody? You've heard about the Mandela Washington Fellowship? Good. When you finish, you guys should read about it. And I hope we would get a few Mandela Washington Fellows from here. Mandela Washington Fellowship was started by President Obama it was actually, the idea was conceived in 2013. They wanted to take young African leaders, give them leadership training. They get to interact with senators, and they get to interact with the president, and then come back to their countries. So every year, the U.S. embassies in the various countries will select people. And so in 2016, I was selected as a Mandela Washington Fellow. The criteria basically is that you as a person should have done something for yourself. You should have had personal achievement, but most importantly, you should be doing something for your community, something that you are not being paid for. And because I had volunteered a lot for this district, and it wasn't something I was being paid for, I used that to get into the Mandela Washington Fellowship. So 2016, I was selected for the fellowship. I went. It was very good. I was sent to Purdue University. It was a very wonderful fellowship. I got to meet a lot of people. But two things came out of that fellowship, apart from the fact that I met President Obama in 2016. But that is not one of the that's not one of the things that came out of it. But when I shook his hand, I didn't wash my hands for a week. But but then apart from that, I met a professor called Jacqueline Linus. Okay. Well, in Ghana, when you say somebody is a professor, the person looks old and all of that, right? This was a 30-year-old woman. Okay. And she was into developing medical devices. Okay. She was developing medical devices. And she came to she was one of the judges on a entrepreneurial competition that I took part in. And I was talking about, it was the VAC kits that I was pitching during the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And she was like, oh, I actually develop medical devices. I use lateral flow tests. I use, let's say, the test kits we have. I use that as part of a medical device. So let's have a conversation. So we did. And she was like, would you be interested in coming back to the US to work in my lab? I was like, yes, why not? So that was the first thing that I got out of the fellowship. The second one was that after the fellowship, I was given an internship at the CDC. Okay. CDC, Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. Okay. And that was a huge opportunity. Okay. The CDC is like the World Health Organization of the US. Everything about health is from the CDC. And I remember I was supposed to spend 30 days on the internship. About 10 days of those 30 days was used for security clearance. They will not allow you to just come to their labs like that. They had to take all my fingerprints, then had to do a security check, run all of those things. So about 10 days later, I got my badge to be able to go there. And the few tests that I developed and where I was sent to was the STI division, the division for sexually transmitted infections. That's where I was sent to do my internship. So while I was doing all the lab work and learning about STIs and all of that, I met a certain man called John Deutsch. John Deutsch had worked in industry producing test kits for over 40 years. And when he went on retirement, they felt that he was too brilliant to sit at home. So they brought him to CDC. Okay. And usually what happens is that he's an old man. Talking is even difficult. Okay. But he likes working. And during the break, you see that a lot of them, during lunch, everybody will go out to go and buy lunch and all of that. Me, if you go and buy lunch alone is about $20. And at that time, if you calculate $20 in Ghana cedis, that's a lot of money. Okay. So, I would do, you know what 001 is? Aha. So me, I started 001 in 2000. That's what he does. So, I knew that, I would wake up in the morning, get ready, come to work, and then, lunch, no lunch, and then I'll eat only supper. Right? So, during lunchtime, all the labs are locked. Okay, during lunchtime, all the labs are locked. And so, John Deutsch will sit at his table, and I'll go and sit by John Deutsch. Okay. And I didn't know he was quite lonely, because when I started sitting with him, the man can't talk. Like, he would tell you about his grandchildren, show you pictures of his grandchildren, show you all of those things. And so in one of the conversations, I talked about the fact that I was developing this particular test, but I realized that it was difficult, like the lines were not very clear and all of that. He was like, "Oh, have you tried this?" I tried and it worked. I was like, "Oh, okay." And so by the time I left CDC, I had a workable test kit. While I was in CDC, I produced about 20. We did a test and it all worked. I was super excited. I came back to Ghana and my mind was like, I was coming to make money. You know, like, can you imagine this particular product in Ghana? People will buy. So I got back. And then I started looking for money to mass produce it. Between 2016 September and 2017 March, I went to over 2,000, and I do not exaggerate, I went to over 2,000 companies, banks, institutions, and nobody believed that the product will actually work. I've said this story over and over again. I went to the Ministry of Health. I went to ask, and I told them what I wanted. They sent me to an office. There was a man seated behind the table, and there was a man standing by him. I explained what I had come to do, and I showed them the kit and everything. The man sitting on the table, very diplomatic. "Oh, we like innovative young people, blah, 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 blah. So, we would get back to you about how we can offer our help and everything." Then the guy standing by the one sitting was like, and unfortunately he said it in Twi. And if I say it in English, you will lose so I'll say it in Twi and then I'll translate. So one thing he said was like, what's your bida? And I said, to it, like, are you saying nobody has ever done this before? I said, "Oh, no, nobody has ever done this." And he was like, "Broni kranye bida." Like, even the white man hasn't even done this. I was like, "No." They both laughed. And that was it. Like, they told me they'll call me back, and that was it. And that was when I started to lose like hope. I was thinking that this thing, maybe I should just abandon it. Then I got, I went into a bank. I think it was Premium Bank. Yes, it was Premium Bank. And then I was talking to somebody, and I think the manager passed by or something. I don't really remember what happened, but Premium Bank decided that they were going to give me a $35,000 loan at the time to be able to buy equipment and be able to produce this. I was so excited, but then they took a lot of back and forth. You needed to bring this document, you needed to bring this collateral. So it went back and forth for a very long time. The loan was approved on a Thursday. They were going to do disbursement on a Monday. That Thursday I was in Accra because the bank was in Accra. On Friday morning, I was actually on my way to back to Kumasi when I got notification that the equipment I wanted to buy, they had increased the prices by 100%. So that means that if I take the $35,000, it would not be able to do anything. I remember this was somewhere in April 2017. I was in a white top, khaki pants, and then black shoe. I remember very well. I walked, my apartment at that time was a story building. I was upstairs. I got to Kumasi, went upstairs, went and stood in the shower and opened the shower, right? And I cried. Like, it was as if, I don't know whether, like, it was all your dreams, all the hopes, everything. Just, okay, like, I don't know how long I cried in the shower. Okay, I basically cried. And when I finished, that shoe that got, the shoe was just spoiled. I've kept it. Okay, it dried and I've kept it. One day when I write my book, okay, it will be on exhibition when I become one of the richest men in Africa. It will be on exhibition for people to come and see what happened. Because I actually nearly gave up. And then so I just cleaned myself. I didn't take my clothes off. And then I went and I slept. I don't know how long I slept. When I woke up, I had an email from Professor Linus. Say, do you remember we had this conversation and all of that? I have a grant to develop this HIV device, and I think I need your help. Can you come? Will you be willing to come over to the US for this? So I was like, if Ghana rejects you, why not? So when I woke up, I started smiling a bit. So I sent an email and said, why not? Yes. And so at the time as well, I had just finished I was doing a PhD with one of my professors, Professor Sarkodie. So the PhD was in microbiology, actually, from Ghana here. Professor Sarkodie at the time was the dean of the medical school, and he was my supervisor. And I had just finished, so it was just the opportune time for me if I wanted to leave the country for me to do. So I left the country and then I went to the US. So when I went to the US, remember, I still had the VAG kit that was still working. And so the question, so we started working on this HIV device, right? But I still felt the VAG kit was very important. So every single pitch competition, I can talk till tomorrow. So if it's getting to time, if it's about this, you let me know so that I can cut things short. My story is a very long one. I haven't even come to COVID yet. And so, yes, so I'll just cut them short. Anyway, in the US, I went to every single pitch competition I could. Okay. So it was one of the competitions, somebody asked me whether I had IP. I had no idea what IP actually meant. And then the person said, but you should protect your idea. So there was the university's legal, they have an IP office. One of the people were there. So I said, you can talk to us and then we would see. I went to the IP office, we discussed, and my test kit was patented. The VAG kit. When it was patented, it became big news. Because apparently, vaginal infections are not only a big deal in Africa, right? So I was on CNN, I was on so many things just because of that kit. And what made it special, okay, that test kit, what made it special is that for a long time, people had been wondering how they were going to use urine to diagnose vaginal infections. We've always used vaginal fluid because the infection is in the fluid. Okay. But apparently with the help of so many people, as I've mentioned, I was able to find a way of concentrating, even if you have just a minute bit of the organism. Okay. So when a lady urinates, there's vaginal contamination of the urine. So some of the vaginal fluid contaminates the urine, right? And so with that, you can use urine to diagnose it because of the method that I had used to develop the kit, which was novel. It was something that nobody had ever done, right? So it became a huge thing. I remember I won. I mean, by the time I was, by 2018, I had won the Schultz Innovation Challenge, the Betty Morgan competition, like about 6 different competitions, and I'd made about $200,000 just from that kit. In 2018, I became the first Ghanaian ever to be nominated for something called the Innovation Prize for Africa. At the time, the Innovation Prize for Africa was for about 3,000 people apply, and they take only 10 people. And the 10 people, they are hosted by a president of Africa. So in 2017, it was hosted in Ghana. So they stay in the president's, like the president basically hosts them, gets them around and all of that. And then on the day of the innovation prize, they give them prizes. I think it's $100,000 per person. Yes, per person. That's what they usually do. Before me, no Ghanaian had ever been nominated for the Innovation Prize for Africa. And after me, no Ghanaian has ever been nominated for that prize. So in 2018, I was nominated for the Innovation Prize for Africa. It was again a big deal. But I remember very well, there was one thing, the US Embassy in Ghana did a whole feature article on, because I was a Mandela Washington Fellowship, they were trying to say that, because of the Mandela Washington Fellowship, I'm doing all these great things. Anyway, they're allowed. So they did a huge feature on their social media platforms and all of that. Then I got a call. I remember I was surprised when I got a call. It was somebody from the Ministry of Health saying that they've seen the good things I'm doing, so I should come back to Ghana. And so that, like, I'll come and impact and all of those things. So I told them that, I've heard. I'll get back to them. I never go back to them. No way. Anyway, so 2018, that was it. And then in the US, working with Professor Linus, I decided that, I was working in the biomedical engineering department. Okay. All the things we're doing was biomedical engineering. But I had no background in biomedical engineering. Okay. And there was no way in Ghana you could take microbiology to go and do anything in biomedical engineering. So I told the professor I wanted to enroll in school to do another PhD in biomedical engineering. She was like, why? Like, she didn't understand, but I said, I know where I'm coming from. One day somebody will tell you that you don't even have the qualifications to do what you are doing. So I enrolled in school, I took courses and all of those things. And through that, I developed other kits. We do not have a lot of time because the story is, I've not even gotten to half, but I'll summarize a lot of the things so that we are able to finish. But we developed a kit. It's like a plaster where you put it on your palm or anywhere. And then it's able to, and then you connect it to your phone, and then you're able to see, if it was meant for people that take drugs. Okay. So as you know, in the US, there's opioid crisis. So somebody takes drugs, the person puts it there. If there's an overdose, it will alert you on your phone. That person is somewhere else. Maybe the person has gone to meet friends. You are a family member. You are in your office or you are home. You'll be able to notice because of the half-life. If the drug, their peak, so if the peak is too high, it will start to sound a bell. That means that the person is in danger. You can quickly find the person. It will give you the location as well and all of that. That was one of the devices we got. We developed a test where somebody has HIV. You want to do a viral load. Currently, what happens is that you take the person's blood sample, you run it on a huge machine that costs about $120,000, and then come out with the results. We developed a very small device that you can connect to your mobile phone. When we did it was for iPhones only. I don't know whether they've moved ahead with it, but you just take your blood sample, put it just a drop in the device, connect it to your iPhone, get the app, and you'll be able to have your viral load and all of those things done. But there was one test that I told my professor I wanted to develop, and it was for a disease called yaws. Remember when I was doing the volunteering, I saw a lot of people with that disease. It's a skin disease for children. Unfortunately, to be able to diagnose it, we needed to take their blood sample. We needed to take swab samples, send them to either the US or to Europe for them to test and give us the results before we could treat the children. And it would take 3-4 weeks before we would get the results. And by the time you get there, most of the children had moved on or they had gone somewhere else or anything. So, long story short, I developed a device called a yaws kit for detecting yaws. Again, when I was developing it, I didn't know it was going to be a big deal. I finished developing it in 2019. We tested it, did all of that. I came back to Ghana, did a clinical trial, and it was working. The World Health Organization, out of that, the World Health Organization, they were super excited about it, and it was adjudged as one of the top 30 innovations in health for that year, 2019. I got lots of grants, 120,000 Canadian dollars from Grand Challenges Canada, $168,000 from Grand Challenges Africa. Like, I got so much money from that yaws kit. The WHO gave me money. I got equipment. Like, so many things from that device. Okay. And then in 2019, after I was getting all these accolades, I sat down and I thought to myself, in the US, I would make money, I would get a lot of name, I would get all of those things. But the impact that I wanted to make, it wasn't going to be as that much if I was in the US. Okay. And I'd always had this saying to me, I always tell myself, learn, lead, impact. Okay. So you learn, you lead, and you impact. I belonged to a group, called the Youth Impact Network. And that was basically, I was the first president, and that was our motto, learn, lead, impact. So you learn, and then you use the knowledge to lead, and then you impact people. So I decided that I wanted to come back to Ghana. I remember at the time I was at, my church. So I'm a Catholic by birth, but when I went to the US, if you want kenke to eat, you need to go to a black church. Okay. And the only black church in my this one was, Church of Pentecost, PIWC. And it was a wonderful church. I enjoyed worshiping with them. The pastor was a very good friend of mine. And every week I was on the magazine of Purdue University. They had a magazine that, they call it the innovation, the boiler innovation or something, where people basically, people that were doing amazing things, they would always be there. And almost every week I was on that magazine because I was meeting with some investor, or I was talking to somebody or something. And then I told my pastor that I wanted to come back to Ghana. The pastor was like, "Oh, have you prayed about it?" I was like, "Yes." Okay. He said, "Oh, this Friday, come and let's pray about it." Apparently, they were organizing a deliverance service for me that Friday because they couldn't just believe that this guy would just get up, like, with all these amazing things that were happening, with all these grants you are winning, just decide out of the blue that you are coming back to Ghana. Probably some witches in your family were disturbing you. So they did a deliverance service. It was on a Friday. On a Monday, I bought my tickets. And then I came back to Ghana. my company, Incas Diagnostics, we started in earnest. I had some money saved, so I bought some equipment, shipped the equipment. As for the duties, the import duties I had to pay, that's a story for another day. Then by August to October 2019, I had developed other tests like pregnancy tests, drug of abuse. The VASH kit was now working. Like I had about 6-7 different test kits. I had FDA approval, and I was like, now I was going to relax and make money in 2020. And then 2020, COVID hit. So when COVID hit, we had a meeting at the beginning, and the idea was that why don't we develop a COVID test? And then we're going to donate the COVID test to the Ministry of Health for free. When we do that, then the Ministry of Health is going to see that, oh, okay, we have other products, because I'd always believed that COVID would pass. And so when COVID passed, then people can look at us favorably for our other test kits, like the other test kits, so that people can buy from us. So that was the whole idea. Before that, the WHO had also decided that they did a hackathon. They called, I think it was 100 innovators across Africa. I was fortunate to be part of those they called, so they put us together, and we're supposed to hack solutions to COVID-19. We're supposed to hack solutions, and I was made team leader for 5 other people. So we're from Ghana, Senegal, South Africa, Nigeria, and Cameroon. Yes, so the five of us. And then we came up with a concept called the COVID-Trats. It was a COVID-19 testing and tracking platform. So you log on, and then you answer a few questions. You are classified under low risk, high risk, and medium risk. And then those that are on the high risk, they did mass testing for them using that's why we are not developing a test kit yet, but we're going to do mass testing and all of that. So the WHO liked that. We got a first prize, and then they said that, okay, they're going to give us money to take it forward. So as part of it, I worked on the COVID-19, the test kits part. So, and then other people worked on the app and all of that, the GPS coordinates and all of that. So when we finished, it became an integrated solution. And so we got a lot of publicity for the test kit. The WHO was I remember they made me do a seminar for all health workers in the world on the COVID test. It was online, but I was beaming throughout because it was a big deal for me. And then fast forward, so after COVID, we did a few other tests. 2 things before I bring my talk to a close. In the US, you remember I've always said that I, apart from the business, I also enjoyed research. Okay. So a lot of the work that I was doing, okay, were as a result of research. Developing test kits is not a business thing, because you are putting money into it. You're not getting money out of it. Okay, so you have to do a lot of R&D. You have to do a lot of research, and then when you get something that works, you then use it. You then commercialize it if you have a private company, or you sell it if you want to. Then between 2000 and after COVID and all of that, I've done quite a bit of work. But then I went to one of the communities. I'm doing a project with London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, so. I'm the project manager for that project. So we went to one of the communities, and I saw a lot of children with scabies. Okay. These skin lesions and there were some that were classical scabies. There were some they were like, oh, this is rashes. I'm like, no, this is scabies. Then they'll tell you, oh, it looks like rashes. So they were not treating the kids, and the kids were very uncomfortable. So I said, okay, I need to make a handheld microscope that you can use to look into the skin and be able to find out whether truly somebody has scabies or not. So that was 2021. I developed this thing, and just this year we used it for a study on scabies. We found about 1,400 kits. We're able to do it very well. And right now, I've just gotten a contract to mass produce 20,000 of these. Okay, I'll show you how it looks like. To mass produce 20,000 of them. And I'm taking $10 for each of them. Okay, so 20,000 times. So this was the first one. This is the prototype. I'll show you how it is. So this one comes with a cord. But after I got the contract, and of course they needed to pay half, so I decided to then do this one, which you can connect to your mobile phone. Okay, and once you connect this to your mobile phone, you are able to see everything that's happening inside your body. But would use this for everybody to see. So I need 2 volunteers, 1 male and 1 female.
Okay, please, some silence.
So,
silence.
Let's start with the male, and then after that we'll see the female. We want to see whether. Okay, so please, if you can hold this for me. So let me just explain. All the black things you are seeing is hair. That's his hair. The lines you are seeing there, the red lines, that's the blood vessels. That's his blood vessels. He does have a few dead cells on his skin, but it's normal. It's because it's in the afternoon. So, your body is always, like, the cells are always dying off and all of that. So, that is it. You have a bit of fat. So you see the fat, the white spots are fat. So these are fat globules. What? The dead cells. They are shiny. So you see that there are a bit of shiny things. Like a few of the things are shiny. Can you see that? Yeah, so those are the dead cells. So, okay, let's see a female and see whether there's going to be a difference. No, it's not. Hello. It's normal. Actually, females, that's a typical. Yes. You are actually better than.
Please, I think the mic.
Hello. Okay, so this is actually a very typical female skin. This is actually a very good picture. The reason is that you see, female apply a lot of cream, so that's why you see a lot of shiny this thing like that. When you look at the blood vessels, they're actually very well vascularized. Like you have a lot of veins or like blood vessels all over, right? Which is a very good thing. It means that the skin is always being nourished because it's the blood vessels that nourish the skin. So this is actually a very, very good picture. I'm looking for somebody with a scar. Okay, let me see this. This is a scar. I want to show. So you see those red spots. It's because of a small scar on the skin. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So you realize that when you have a scar, blood doesn't flow to that area. That's why. And the upper part, the blood vessels are, you do not see the blood vessels. So those are some of the things. So thank you very much to my 2 volunteers. Give them a hand of applause. So again, these are some of the. This is one of the things that is my newest device. Currently, Incas Diagnostics has 37 workers. We've been able to employ 37 people. What is fun about us is that the technical side, which is where the engineering and all of those things happen, we have a lot more female than male. Our CTO is female, head of production is female, our quality manager is female. And then the administrative side, in normal places, administration is made up of more women, and then the technical is men. For us, the administrative side is full of men. Our finance person is male. Our procurement male. Almost all the admin side is male, and then the technical side is made up of female. We have quite a bit of things. We've tried to introduce a few things, like we have period leave, for instance. If you are female and you work with us and you have cramps, you take 2 days off and we pay you for it. So it's called a period leave. That's some of the things we try to do. Now, bringing my talk to a close, charting new paths. Okay. You realize that there were so many times in between when I say my story. There are so many times. Unfortunately, I had to rush getting to the end. Otherwise, we would not have closed. But there were so many times in between that I could have just said, nah, nobody has ever done this. Why should I waste my time to do this? Okay. There were times when people felt I was crazy for deciding to do certain things, liquidating all my money to go to the US, using my own money to travel once a week to go and to go to Upper West Achim, okay, and then you buy your own food. Like, you won't get anything out of it, right? Quitting and coming back to Ghana and all of those things, okay. Sometimes that path is very, very, very lonely, especially when people feel that when you would get a lot of people who actually mean well, they would feel like this advice we are giving you is actually supposed to help you because you are taking a path that everybody thinks is not the right path. Sometimes you have to go with your conviction. One of the things I've learned not to do is regret. I take certain decisions and I get to a place I hit the wall. And then I realized I effed up. Right? Yes. But I've learned not to regret. Okay? I always tell myself, well, I learned something. That's good. And then I turn back. Because you see, I realize that if you always listen to what people tell you to do, I mean, I'm not telling you not to listen to advice, but ultimately the decision as to which way you want to proceed is always about you. Because if you listen to people talk to you, you would always get people tell you things you cannot do. And let me tell you this. There's a misconception sometimes when I talk to my students or I talk to other people, they feel that when I was in school, I was a very brilliant student. I wasn't at all. If you took the first 10 people in my class, I wasn't one of them. If you take the last 10 people in my class, I wasn't one of them either. Okay. But I was always hanging in there somewhere. You know, that person where, oh, he's a good student, but no, okay, he's a good student, but he's not really, if you are looking for brilliant students, he's not one of the people they would choose. You know, those kind of people, that is where I was. I was more interested in student politics. I was in KNSD, SRC, Katanga Hall. I was editor-in-chief. I was secretary to their traditional council. Okay, anyway, that's a different, but I was more interested in other things. Okay, so any of you sitting here, so long as you develop an interest in something enough, you can make a mark in that thing. I realized that when I started developing an interest in making things, and when I started making things that I was interested in, that was when I began to excel. Do you understand? When I started to make things, there are certain things if you tell me to make right now, I might not be able to make them. Because personally, I am not interested in them. So the number of hours, I can spend days just reading about something I want to do. Just getting all the structure of that component. I can spend days and I'll be eating and I'll be reading and I can spend days doing this. If I am not interested, I'll read one page for like 5 days. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So in doing the things that I enjoy doing, I realized that I became very, very good at them. So, whenever you get to a crossroad, charting new paths means that you are following a particular familiar path, and then you get to a path, there's one road that everybody is passing, but there's this other road you feel you want to take, but nobody has been on that road before. If you ask me, nobody has ever lost anything in giving it a try. Okay, and sometimes when you try some of these things, you would realize that the rewards will be far better. Today, I employ people, I make money, okay, and a lot of things are actually, doing very well for me, right? So I think that it is something that you need to think about. But then I also would advise that you have mentors. Because even though nobody has passed that road, somebody has passed a similar road before, and they know the problems that are associated with it. And they can give you the advice. But once you get that advice, the ultimate decision would come from you. I do not mean to paint a very rosy picture in all the things I've done. I just decided today not to dwell on the problems, but it is a very, 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 very challenging journey. Okay, and if you are somebody who would give up the first instant, you won't get anywhere. And you should be prepared to make quite a number of sacrifices. Okay, you would have to, your personal life would have to be at a standstill for a while. That is at least what happened to me. There are people that are able to juggle their personal lives with doing a lot of things with and all of that. People have been able to do it. So it doesn't mean, so maybe if you talk to me and I tell you it cannot be done, that is one of the things that you should know that can easily be done if you know how to manage your time well. So I'm going to end with this, that there is nothing in this world that cannot be done. The fact that we've not found people to do them, okay, or we've not found people that can do that thing does not mean that it cannot be done. And probably the person who will come and do it is sitting in this class with me. Okay, so once you have that mindset that anything can be done, okay, and you are not limited by walls that prevent you from fully exploring and your mind, I can tell you would go very, very, very far. So I'll end here and I'll pause. If you have any questions, we'll take the questions and then we'll end.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Bubuni. And every time I ask a question, I ask this like one same question. I feel like you'll be the best person to answer me. Since when you went tech, you had a job, you had to operate a business at the same time, you had school as a whole. What's your best tip on time management? Because I'm someone who, as soon as I dropped here, I did a food business with my friend. And at the same time, I do computer engineering. It's a 8:30 to 5:30 course here on this campus. So it's not something I had time for. So I had to stop right in first semester. I really enjoyed my, doing it, and food and computer engineering as a whole, 2 different sectors. So how do you think I can take those two parts?
That's a very good question. Let me take all of them and then I'll answer you. That's a very good question.
Hello, I'm Archibald. Yes, just one today. Oh no, I have a lot of questions, but let me ask one today. So, my question is, I think over the time I've been asking the same question because it's something that we'd not seem to highlight a lot. So what are some of the challenges that come with change? I'm asking challenges that come with change in the sense that you had to move a lot, you had to do a lot of things. And then at some point you made a very interesting fact that a lot of people would come with good intentions, but wouldn't really, in this time, wouldn't really know how to push it out to you. Somebody would come and say that I don't think you should even come back to Ghana. What were some of the things?
I love the questions. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Idris, and my question is, what are the basics requirements or qualities that you use to employ your people, humanly speaking? And what is the biggest salary in your company, apart for you, because I know you take the dividends?
Okay. Let me take the last question and then I'll come down. So usually I don't do people do not apply to my company. People do not I don't do CVs and all of that. Usually when you do attachments or internships with us, okay, I observe a lot. I observe as you do, because you find me in the lab working. Okay. So I observe people that way. I also observe people interactions that we make. In KNUST, for instance, I like to visit the students when they study, when they're in the labs and all of that, because then I get to talk to them. And I love to employ people that have ideas and not just necessarily know how to do things, because knowing how to do it, you can easily be taught. But learning how to think is a very important thing for me. And I know that when it comes to interviews, CVs and profiles, people can actually write a very good thing, but at the end of the day, it's not something that is very helpful. So I like to personally interact with people. It's not a sustainable way of recruiting people, because it will get to a point we would have to recruit. Right now we have a branch actually here. We are bringing the hardcore engineering to Accra. The main diagnostics will be in Kumasi. We are going to Nigeria, we're going to Kenya, and all of that. And I cannot personally meet everybody and recruit them, but I really hope that how I've been able to recruit our current staff, probably other managers, as we expand, other managers will be able to do the same. As for the salaries, unfortunately, I cannot tell you the salaries. What I can say is that working with us is quite comfortable. It's quite comfortable. That's what I'll say. One of the things, I take people fresh out of school, and the reason is the culture that I want to build. Everybody in my institution calls me Lord. My name is Laud Basing. So it's not Lord, as you know. Okay. I don't let people call me Dr. Basing. Okay. Because when you do that, it creates a sort of a gap. So when we have our brainstorming sessions, when we want to develop something and people are talking, there's no fear. I remember we had a retreat and one staff, where we was going back and forth with the staff, and we had a new recruit, and you could see that she was visibly shaking because she couldn't believe that the guy could speak back at me like that. And when we finished, I saw her face and I started laughing, and I was like, no, that's what happens in the business. Because if you don't do that, you don't get ideas. And if you don't get ideas, you don't develop. So I really encourage that kind of thing. So if somebody wants to work with us, the first step is come do internship with us, and then we'll take it from there. All right. Now the second question about change and the challenges that come with change. I can talk for hours about the challenges, but I think one of the things I'm going to summarize by saying that the main challenge is the fear of the unknown. That is the main challenge. Because for you as a person, you are afraid, you don't know what is going to come. Look, you are working, you have a very comfortable salary, and you want to go and do this. The fear of the unknown might make you want to stay back, okay, and not move on. Okay. All the people that will come and talk to you and try to discourage you, they are not doing that, at least most of them, they're not doing that maliciously. It's not because they don't want you to succeed. It is because they also have that same fear of the unknown. They don't know what is going to happen. And they feel that it is better that you have a known variable than something that is not known. In fact, there's a saying that says that the devil you know is better than the angel you don't know. It's a typical saying that exhibits the fear of the unknown. You don't know what will happen. And that's why I talk about the fact that I've learned not to regret. If I go and meet another devil, why not? You learn your lessons and you move on. Do you understand? So I think that is the major challenge. There are other things like, yes, sometimes you would fail. And it's always good you feel fast and you feel cheap. When I say feel cheap, it doesn't necessarily have to be money. So you are working, you are making comfort, something that is good. The best thing is that you don't just quit all of a sudden and then decide that I'm going to go into business. If you fail, you failed expensively. Okay, so sometimes what you do is that you have one leg in the business, but then you have one leg in your organization, wherever you are working and making money. And then you start your main business as a side business and see how it goes. Okay, and that brings me to her question. I always encourage people to try businesses while in school. Okay, because believe you me, you cannot study throughout. And people spend the downtime from studying, conversing, visiting friends, watching movies, doing all of those things. So if you have a side business that actually helps you, it's good. The problem has always been time management. And time management is because of two things. One, we feel we can do everything on our own. And so while you're doing everything on your own, you have to manage this time, you have to do this, you have to do this. Okay. And that's what happens with a lot of businesses. People start businesses. Okay. Somebody else is doing the same thing. Somebody else is doing the same thing. And we become competitors. Instead of coming together, bringing our resources together to start something beautiful. So one of the things you could do is to form partners. Okay. When you are forming partner, you don't look for somebody that has the same characteristics as you. You look for somebody that has things that complement you. So if you are somebody who likes to cook, for instance, that person should be in charge of the marketing. That person should be in charge of the social media, for instance, or something else, or the finance. Okay. If yours is 8:30 to 5:30, for instance, that person could have classes that probably are free somewhere maybe in the afternoon. In the morning, almost everybody goes to class. But you have to deliberately look for people who have things that you do not have, and then you share the work. When you come back from class, you can come and sleep a little, study a little. And then maybe if you have to do something as part of the business, you do that as well. You manage that time. And then as you manage that time, the other person is also managing the other side. You realize that you'd move very fast and very far. Okay. The other, so that's one, being able to delegate and finding partners. The second one is to always plan. Okay. Sorry. I'm trying to cut this. It's to always make a plan. Look, I always plan my day. Okay. I plan my day and I give myself allowances. If I'm supposed to meet you at 5:30, okay, I know that I'll tell myself, okay, and I'm supposed to meet you for an hour. I always give myself allowances because sometimes you can be late or any other thing. But I always make sure that my day is planned so that at the end of the day, even if I don't follow the plan according to the way it's supposed to be, I'm able to manage my time very well. And you need to learn how to do your to-do list and to plan them to the minute. When I was in second year in the university, I did a 20-year plan. In 2017, I looked at what I had done and I realized that I had achieved almost everything. So I needed to do another 20-year plan. And so I have done another 20-year plan up to 2037. And this 20-year plan, I've broken it down to 5 years each. What should happen in this year? What should happen in, within this first 5 years? And then the 5 years, I've broken it down to every single year, what I want to achieve with myself. And the one that I've done for each year, I've broken it down to months. So at the end of every month, I should have achieved this. I should have done this. I should have done this. And so at the end of the year, normally with the middle of the year, I do a recap and see what have I been able to do? What have I not been able to do? That way it has guided me such that when things look too slow, when you have big plans, I'll give you an example. For instance, I want to build one of the biggest research centers in Ghana. I have a land for it. At the beginning of the year, I didn't have a land, but right now I have four plots of land for it. And so this was huge. As of now, I still don't have that. But because I broke it down into small steps, I know that I am moving way ahead of what I want to do. Because I was able to buy land, and I bought the land very, very cheap. Well, it wasn't very, very cheap though, but it was affordable. Where it is, and I got it directly from the Santahene. And because I knew what I wanted to do, my pitching game was on point. So I was able to go and talk about it. And then I got the land. So that is one aspect. I also know that I need an architect. So I spoke to a friend of mine. So the agreement was that, okay, if you draw the plan for me for free, you get to build the factory. You get to build the research center. So I got the plan for free. So I have a plan. I have a land. Now I have to look for money. So far, I talked to this people and I'm like, okay, if you can give me this amount of money, if you can give me this amount. Right now, I have at least pledges. I have about $200,000 for that one. I haven't had the money yet, but I've had pledges. One from Soros Development Fund. GIZ is also giving me. Soros Development Fund is giving me. They are giving me 200,000, but 50,000 of it is going into the building. GIZ is also giving me 50,000 into the building. Then Right is an NGO in Korea. They are also giving me 100,000 for it. So I'm raising 1 million. So I am hoping that by the end of next year, I should have raised that $1 million. When all the monies come, then the building will start. But if I had told myself that if I hadn't broken it down into the very, very small things I wanted to do, and I was looking at the big picture and I always thinking myself, I'll tell myself, oh, I don't have money to buy land. I don't have money to start. So I'll be looking for money to start the whole process. Okay. And to get money to start everything, you won't get it. Because I had land and I had a plan. That's how come I'm getting people to give me money to put up the building. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So if you break your plans down into very, very small things where you do one a day, and it's not just for food, it's just for everything. When you make plans that you break it down into very, very, very small parts, you realize that as you achieve them, you get encouraged that you'll be able to succeed at the end of the day. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi. I wanted to ask a question earlier. I'm assuming you've heard of Theranos.
Yes, Theranos, yes.
Yes. I wanted to know, well, considering what you told us about yourself, you are quite the hot cake in the medical industry. I wanted to know whether or not you had any interaction with people in that field and what it was like, or what's your story about it? Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. All right. So let me put it this way. In the US, the startup space is actually like cutthroat, right? You have people, sometimes you have a genuine idea and you're doing amazing things. Okay. Somebody would come and the person is making all the money and you're not able to raise anything. Do you get it? And so the temptation to fake certain things becomes very, 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 very high. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Okay. And so with her story, for instance, she started out very well. If you don't know what happened, there's this young lady, I've forgotten her name. Holmes, good. She started this startup. It was a diagnostic startup. I'm also in a diagnostic startup. And she raised so much money. And when she raised so much money, she realized that there was pressure for her to deliver, and she could not deliver because the device she was developing was not working and all of that. So she started to fake results. And as she started to fake results, she got more money because then the results were almost too good to be true. So she started to get more money, and finally it became a huge scandal. She was arrested. She went to court and blah, 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 blah. So for me, that was one of the first things I learned. Okay. Taking people's money. So as of now, I own 100% of my company. It does not mean that I am not going to give out equity. I will not allow people to come and buy shares of my company. No. I want to make sure that currently as I develop the company, okay, remember, I came back just 2019. And so far we are doing a lot of things. Okay, we are selling and all of that. But we are still in the startup phase, in quotes. Right? Which means that we need to make sure anything can happen. The company can collapse tomorrow. If everything collapses today, it is my money. Everything I have put in, it's my money. Right? Nothing spoiled. Okay? But if you take people's money, then you are under pressure to deliver certain expectations to them. If today I'm working on a product and the product is not working, I'll be disappointed, but that disappointment is for me. But if I take money to develop a particular product and that product is not working, I'm getting pressure. Anytime I see calls from my investors, I don't even want to pick. So the temptation to start to fake things becomes, high. Okay. So for me, probably the lesson basically is that your ethics should always trump everything. Secondly, you should not let money be the motivation factor for doing anything. Okay, money is very important. He doesn't agree. Okay, you don't agree. Money is very, very important. Okay, but sometimes, especially if you know that you are not very sure this thing will work, you need to let people know. For instance, it takes about 2 years to develop a test kit. One test kit takes about 2 years. COVID, we were able to do it in a short time because you had developed tests for a long time, so you're able to use the same thing. Right? So it wasn't that innovative. It's just that it was the first come by, it wasn't that innovative because it was just the same formula you had been using. But if you want to come out with something completely innovative, the minimum it will take is about 2 years. If an investor is giving you money, you need to let that investor know that it will take more than 2 years for you to start to recoup your money back. If the person doesn't know that, the person will put pressure on you and you start faking results. Okay, so there are a lot of lessons to learn from that. And I have learned those lessons as well. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together for him.
My 20-year plan, okay, I'm actually going to become the Director General of the World Health Organization. So you can mark it anywhere. When I become the Director General, you realize that this guy said it. It's one of my plans.
Yeah. So I deem it an honor to be granted this golden opportunity to say the vote of thanks. My untold gratitude to our noble facilitator for such a privilege bestowed on me. For the purpose of this impressive occasion, one of the most instrumental norms of the African culture will be deemed pivotal. So lest they say that ambiguity in the minds of all and sundry pertaining to intellectual insanity in accordance in accordance with African society, then I must say in humility that greetings to our charismatic guests of honor, our lecturer, the media personnel, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. It is not only with intense personal joy, but also with a great apprehension that I take the floor before this august audience. In other words, it calls for a great temerity to dare stand in the midst of our dignified guest, whose name calls for a selfless approbation. To declare nothing but the truth, you are a paragon of virtue and a perfect example of true honesty. Self-evidently, this encounter with you today reflects a sense of optimism and enthusiasm in us all. We deem your presence a blessing. In a very real sense, as you said, the continent is unmade. It still awaits its creation and its creators. It is our duty and privilege to rouse the slumbering giant of Africa. But while we agree that the ultimate destiny of the continent lies in our hands, we must at the same time recognize that the obstacles to be surmounted are at once numerous and formidable. However, it is not possible for us to obliterate with a stroke of a brush like a painter from a day to the next all the disheartening realities of our continent. We need to forge a spiritual momentum by pulling together our potentialities as prophetic leaders. Yes, so therefore, in a state of complete concordance, we wish to finally restate our gratitude and our unflinching desire to have a healthy appreciation of our fallibilities to avoid and to measure judiciously the ingredients of wisdom and realism which are essential to the realization of our dreams. We shall fight on all fours with our hearts beating to the same rhythm alongside uncompromising patriotism by giving ourselves no rest until we accomplish the mission that we have been commissioned to. Once again, we affirm our gratitude to you for the words of inspiration, emanating not just from an enunciate orator, but a true son of life. We are ready to learn, to lead, and to do. Thank you.